Hello, and welcome to another edition of Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I am John Schaefer, and I'm joined today by Dallas Kemp. Today, we are going to be painting some Star Wars Legion miniatures as part of our ongoing series over the course of May, in which we are trying to paint up 500 points of Legion and play some games with it, hopefully afterwards. So I think that's largely it. Today, myself and Dallas are going to be painting miniatures from the Clone Wars era. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over my cam to my miniature, and we can go and get started. All right.
Yeah, I'm already on there. Look at him.
Look at him. There he is, ready to go. All right, so we have got. I've got a B2 battle droid. Dallas, what are you painting today? You painting some clones?
I've got some Phase 2 clone troopers.
Very nice. So why don't we share and talk a little bit about our lists and kind of some of the decisions that we made before we get too in depth into the painting side of things. Oh. So if we could switch over to our list view, that would be super cool. Here we go. So on the left is my stuff. I've chosen General Grievous because he is very cool and one of my favorite characters in the Separatist Alliance. And because we're playing skirmish-based games, I have a feeling that B2 battle droids are going to be super good in that format because they got shorter range guns, they're real durable, you're playing on a smaller table in general. So I've opted for those. And then I've chosen two other units that I just really like the looks of. I think they're really cool. I think they're going to work well in conjunction with one another. And that's Droidicas and Stap Riders. So I think the whole plan is just to push up the middle with Grievous flanked by some battle droids and then run around the outsides with Droidicas and Stap Riders to try to kill off primary targets. Dallas, what about you? What do you got going
on? I went with clones. Super excited to be painting up these miniatures. I think that they're just interesting and a lot of fun to paint up. So I got my clone commander and 2 units of Phase 2 clones, one with a Z6 and one with an engineer. The engineer is because I took the TX-130 Saber tank with a veteran clone pilot, which I'm super excited for because if there's one thing I am, it's a treadhead. I love big tanks and big robots.
Yeah.
And then I took a ARC Trooper strike team with the DC-15X.
Cool. Just having like a flexible little team running around and picking off other strike teams and other smaller units.
And whatever happens on the battlefield happens on the battlefield.
Yeah, totally. So I noticed that you kind of opted to go with a lot of upgrades to mitigate suppression. It looks like that's kind of part of your plan. You're taking a lot of endurance on a lot of your units.
Yeah, I put endurance on everything. This is my first time playing Legion and building a force for them. So I had a couple conversations with you and Luke Eddy and kind of discussed like some ideas, and we went with kind of heavy on endurance.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan in general. I mean, if there's one thing that clones really want is 2 actions every turn. So any opportunity to kind of mitigate any sort of suppression like that seems like a good plan to me. And we'll see how it all plays out. It's like you never really know until you get stuff on the table and you try to figure out what how it's all going to play out for you.
Like it's always good to have like a tactical plan, but to be honest, the whole force was built around the tank and the fact that this is the Lucky 13.
Oh, nice.
That's all that matters. Lucky 13s, they're just my made up clone squad.
That sounds cool. That's a great name. So you're going to focus everything around the tank. I think that's going to be, when we actually get to some gameplay on all this stuff, that's going to be a tricky thing to try to deal with, I think, for a lot of the players, because it's got a lot of firepower. It's very resilient, but it's also a lot of points kind of tied up in it too. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on what missions and things we have, but sounds cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's all about picking that story and sort of the centerpiece that I want to build my army around.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a tactic or how to be the best on the table.
Mm-hmm.
I got excited about the TX-130 and just started building around that. I mean, if we jump up to 800 points, I might even add a second one.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Huh, looks like I dropped out of there for some reason. Am I back? There we are. All right, cool.
He's back.
And I'm back.
So we're painting forces, and what's your approach there to painting? I know you've talked about it a little bit on your streams.
Mm-hmm.
Painting an army. What was your kind of approach here to painting a full list?
Well, I think that, when you're painting a lot of miniatures, a big part of it is kind of making some compromises because, you're not going to be able to spend, unless you really want to, a ton of time on every individual miniature. So I think a big part of it is trying to figure out efficient techniques, like managing like drying time is always a thing for me. Like when you are sitting down and just waiting for washes to dry, you're just losing time. So
that's why I have a blow dryer.
yeah, that's definitely helpful. Things like that. And I try to set stuff up so I can do all the miniatures in kind of an assembly line where I can kind of move around a little bit and just kind of jump back and forth between different miniatures to get stuff done. And then I pick and choose elements on the miniature that I think are going to be the most noticeable. And I spend a little bit of extra time there, but I cut some corners in other places. You can always go back and like add some more and embellish a little bit more on miniatures, but I kind of like to, just figure out efficient ways to get them painted and just get them on the tabletop and play some games with them. And then, learn about how that particular force plays and make some decisions after that. How about you? How do you approach army painting?
I'm definitely a assembly line painter.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to painting a force, I want to pick a color, stick with that color, get that color applied everywhere, go to the next color, work my way through the squad or whatever I'm working on that day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's trying to come up with quick ways to get through or cheat. And there's no cheating in art, so I'm going to use that as like just a term that everybody understands, just to cheat and get through the miniature quick.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's it's generally a good approach. There's just some things that nobody's really going to see from 3 feet away, and you definitely you can spend some more time on your characters and all that sort of stuff, but you can just get a really nice looking force in a fraction of the time if you are selective in what you focus on, I think, each time. That's my general approach. I think we're kind of on the same page there for sure.
Oh yeah. How fast can I get this done?
Yeah, totally.
I'm not paying for competition. We talk a lot about like choosing the destiny of the miniature, and like this is definitely one of those moments, right?
Yeah.
This is not for competition. This is not for display. This is not for a box. This is for some games to have fun, goof off, tell some fun stories. So it doesn't got to be award winning. It's just got to look really, really cool. And so I like cheating my way into looking cool sometimes and just getting it done and knocked out real quick.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
I'm waiting for the question, how do you cheat white then if you pick white?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Well, there was I think on a previous stream, there was a person in the chat that was asking about painting white specifically. Do you have you got some secret tech?
Don't use white.
Okay.
That's my big one. I don't use white. I start with an off-white. I like using my airbrush to lay in like that initial shadow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really zenith priming or anything like that. Like I'm really laying in that initial dark area, light area base coat. And then I use a lot of grays and stuff to quickly shade that again. And then highlight with pure white. Try to go as fast as possible.
Oh yeah, sure.
And then add like little colors if you want. If you want really artistic flourish, you can throw in like little hints of like blues or greens or yellows here and there to really make white come alive.
Oh yeah. I've seen you do that on some other colors before, just like adding in some kind of accent colors and maybe even suggesting some, atmospheric kind of lighting, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool.
Just makes it quick, makes it more lifelike, and gives your eyes something to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I usually kind of when I do white, a lot of times it's starting off with Again, kind of like an off-white, something that's just a little bit lower, because you have to be able to do kind of like those last highlights and things to really accentuate stuff, and you can only go so bright. You can't go brighter than white, right? So starting off with that kind of color, and then I like to kind of just glaze in the shadows and just kind of shade it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And just try to do a little bit of the light, so like under the legs and things like that. I often see you kind of paint in that style where you're painting in the shadows and things to really define the forms, and I think that's a good way to go for sure. Not the only way, of course, but certainly a solid approach.
Many paths to success. Like, just because this is the one I'm doing doesn't mean it's one that the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our own approaches, and like learning those different approaches and trying to adapt to them and taking them all in, developing your own like philosophical approach is like a really good way to learn how to paint. Like for this, I'm just using this like rainy gray, which is a very dirty gray, and I'm just using it to like tint the dark and the light on this clone armor to give me a real ceramic white that will help increase that contrast between light and dark.
Nice. I'm kind of approaching this in at least these miniatures and a lot of my droid army in general, just with kind of like a traditional, I prime them in, the color that's going to be the most common. So in this case, it's going to be this kind of bone color. And then I apply a shade over top of them, and then just kind of highlight back up. I think that's just kind of the quick and direct way of doing it. But I think that, when I'm applying the shade, what I often try to do is just make sure to just wick away any sort of the shade from the raised areas. And that just saves a lot of time and me having to go back in and touch stuff up again. Just kind of like moving it and pushing it around a little bit.
No.
I've seen you and Will doing that on the streams, and it works great.
Are you doing anything unique for the colors? Are you going to do some unique, like, unit markings or anything for your squad?
Yeah, so end result's going to look like this guy. And this is kind of what I'm shooting for. Okay. And it's all for kind of a Kashyyyk theme, using greens and things. You didn't necessarily see him exactly like this, but a lot of it is inspired by the AAT tank driver that you see. He's got like a lot of cool like green bands and things on him. So yeah, it's kind of the general approach. I like to use like a really bright color, like a white or a really light gray, something really dark, and then some middle values in between, just to try to get the color scheme down. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this one. It's got these kind of bone colors in here. I'll pick out a lot of stuff in a couple different shades of gray, and then I have some black in there for contrast to kind of pick it all out. So it'll be fun to kind of use this basic set of colors and apply it across a lot of different miniatures in different ways. And I'm excited to do droidicas and staff riders and things like that for the same reason, because it'll be it's kind of interesting to figure out variations on a theme, and I think it just helps with the overall cohesiveness of the force and how it looks all together.
Yeah, I like that color scheme. It looks really good.
Thanks, man. Well, it's no secret that we're coming out with a bunch of cool Kashyyyk stuff, so it's a lot of it's inspired for that, and I'll certainly be adding some of those releases as they come out.
Spoilers! I joke.
I know. People know. They already know. We showed off some cool Wookiees in the last stream. We showed off the shield guy.
I might have just approved something today.
Oh, nice.
So
we'll soon be showing off a lot more stuff coming up for those waves.
Those guys is laying down, covering fire.
The Nealon Z6 guy.
Yeah, I almost converted him to be standing up. I didn't do a lot of conversions, but I did a few. Hang on, let me grab something. I'll start a little tease for later. I converted my what's the gun the ARC Trooper has, the DC-15X?
Yeah, that's it.
I converted him to be standing up.
Oh, that looks sweet.
So instead of the crouching pose, I used several different parts and made a standing up ARC Trooper with the DC-15X.
Very cool. Yeah, I know a lot of those parts are pretty interchangeable. You can kind of swap them around in cool ways.
Yeah, I was having a lot of fun. Like my clone commander, which I'll paint in a couple weeks, has the communicator backpack because I thought that made him look unique.
Yeah, I like that the specialist pack that came out.
Yeah,
That one's got a lot of cool little bits to embellish your clones with. Definitely dig it.
yeah. I was like, why should just a communicator guy be able to talk good? I'm gonna give my commander that.
Very nice. So you haven't gotten too in depth in playing the game yet, but command cards are certainly a big part. Now you've chosen to take a generic clone commander, so your options are kind of limited right now.
Yeah,
But they're still really good, I think, for the build that you have, because there's kind of a 1 pip for a tank that also issues an order to another unit. There's a lot of flexible cards that you can use for your clones that'll work out pretty well. And then you can decide later on as you expand out, introducing some character command cards and stuff in there if you wanna go that route.
as long as it matches the name and the theme. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Totally.
like we were. I can't remember the other cards I picked out, my other upgrades, but we were just talking about like the philosophy of my clone commander and like what his leading style is like. So we picked some cards based around that and like why endurance was picked. Like these are tough and rough and tumble clones on the outer rim. They're called like I said, calling them the Lucky 13s.
Yeah, I like it. Well, I think you also chose strict orders for your commander too, so that's even more like suppression handling stuff. So I think anybody that's trying to suppress your clones is going to have a hard time of doing it.
Yeah,
for sure.
because we're tough.
You're in the fight.
We're the squad that gets it done when others can't.
Nice. All right, so I'm just kind of going through and starting to block out my second colors. I had some other ones that I already applied a wash to. So I think now at this stage, I just start to go in and block out a lot of the other colors that I'll need.
I'm just doing this like gray wash as well. I'm
Going
doing
through them all.
like, yeah, it looks like you're kind of applying like a more traditional wash where I'm like kind of like blend washing. I call it blend washing.
Yeah, where you're kind of putting the wash down and then feathering out the edges.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks really cool. I need to practice that a little bit more, I think. It seems like it could save you a ton of time. I use it for not really for like the initial washes. I definitely use it for like larger flat areas.
Yeah, those big
Works out pretty well, but I should think about it for these wash steps too. I've got plenty more miniatures to paint, so I'm sure I can apply that.
That's always
Future projects.
There's so many more miniatures, so many more armies, so many more projects. There's always time to practice another technique.
For sure.
I feel like it takes a little bit more time, but the effect is a little more subtle. So I guess it depends on what you're going for.
I bet in the long run you're saving time though, because I'm gonna have to go back in and layer up all these colors. Whereas you kind of have a lot of it already set up for you.
Yeah, the goal is 2 washes and a highlight. That's my goal here.
Okay.
On the white. Now I've opted to not do any colors on the troopers. I'm going black, and I'm doing a lot of black. So I could actually save even more time by picking where the black is going to go on the troopers, but I want to individualize the black markings. So I want every trooper to be unique. So I'm just kind of painting all the white the same way. 2 shades, 1 highlight, and then I'm going to go in black to add like, maybe they got a full black helmet and black shoulders, or maybe they got black leg, and that's it. Like really individualize them.
Yeah.
It's been looking for a while. Curious if you guys have any tips for someone pretty new to painting, trying to pick up pointers where I can. John, you want to take that first, and I'll do mine.
Yeah, for sure. I think that what often helps me and has helped me in the past learn the fastest is sitting down with other people that know how to paint. And I know that's a little bit difficult right now, but I think as as things start to open up, maybe ask your local game store, your friends about getting together and setting up a regular paint night, because you can I feel like it really keeps you on task. It keeps you motivated because you're sat down with friends and you've set out part of your schedule to sit down and do it. And B, you can start to learn things just by actually watching people do it. Now, there are a number of different, resources that you can find online, a lot of painting tutorials. We're in this golden age now where information is just everywhere about any sort of hobby or any sort of pursuit that you have. So I think that there's a wealth of different information out there. I do feel like you need to be a little selective because sometimes people are, I don't know, they're maybe a little bit biased or a little bit too focused on particular techniques or things like that. And they're not really keeping the beginner in mind at the very beginning, but it's going to kind of vary. I think that we're also trying to, as a studio, try to produce more kind of beginner focused content. So I think that you can certainly look to our live streams and some other resources that we'll be doing in the future to try to help new players get accustomed to painting miniatures, because it's kind of intimidating, I think, for a lot of people at first. But once you learn to really use the texture and the surface of the miniature to your advantage, I think a lot of things really start to open up. What do you think, Dallas?
I mean, I agree with all that. For me, it's getting over the fear of failure. I think failure is something that we should embrace more, because you're just never going to nail it. You shouldn't be looking at how Michael Jordan dunks a basketball if you've never picked up a basketball, right? Like, so you can look at all the top tier painters, you can look at all the competition painters, and that should not be your first goal. Your first goal should be, how do I paint tabletop? And be okay with messing up. Be okay with asking a lot of questions. Be okay with just learning to love the fail. Not being okay with it, right? Not being like, oh, I failed, that's good enough. And I'm using fail as a very generic phrase here. But like being like, okay, well, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? So now you got to ask the question. So ask advice from people who you see and you do respect and admire, and get that information. But just get in there and try it. You got to do. You can't just paint. You can't just dunk a basketball. You got to try. You got to mess up. You got to fall down.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Just pick up the brush.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to learn the most just through trial and error and just like teaching yourself as you go through that process. And that is just a fundamental part of it. I think that is a really good pointer, is that, you shouldn't get too caught up. There's a lot of people online that have been doing this for years. They're very well versed in it. And you shouldn't compare yourself to it. It's a personal journey in a lot of cases, like you should be proud of just learning any new skill, and focus on, developing and learning new things each time. And be proud of what you do. You don't have to exactly nail it the first time out.
Yeah, CJN says like, responds to all this with like, the fear of failure is definitely a thing. It's like, well, you're not really failing. You're learning. You haven't failed at it. You haven't failed at it at all. You're learning something. You're developing a skill. You're developing a talent. You're developing a set of abilities. You're not failing at anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you tried and you did and you learned, and that itself is the lesson. I got tons of miniatures that, John, I'm sure you do, that you look back and you're just like, wow, I really, boffed it.
Yeah.
But that's not a fail. That's a lesson. That's an important step. And those are beautiful miniatures in my eyes. Like, I love when a friend comes over and they're like, dude, show me the worst miniature, and I pull it out, like I'm like, here it is, and they're like, what? Oh my god! Like, you painted that one thing that one time that was awesome, and you painted that too. I'm like, yeah, I painted that. It's so cool because I kept it and I learned from it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's like a snapshot in time, right? Like it's you go
Yeah.
back and you refer to that and you're like, oh, I remember this was going on in my life at that time. And it's like I think that, keeping those things around and holding on to them just has like a lot of value, at least does for me.
Oh yeah, people talk about stripping miniatures all the time, and I'm like, well, I could never do that. I
Yeah.
never strip a miniature because that is like a watermark, right? That's like going to the river and seeing that watermark of the time it flooded in 1987, right? That's where the water line hit that year, right? That's
All
like
right.
that's me too, right? I pull out that miniature, I'm like, that's 1994 Dallas, and that's an important time and that's an important step for me.
Yeah, and you can just immediately compare it and think about like how you've grown as a painter and
Yeah.
what things that you learned, how your approach and your aesthetics might have changed over that time. Yeah, it's cool. I love doing that. I've never thrown away or sold any of my miniatures at all. I've always kept a hold of them just for that reason. You can just always go back and refer to them.
I definitely sold miniatures.
I have a hard time letting them go.
Goodbye, Army.
Yeah. As a result, yeah, like the whole part of my house is pretty much dominated by miniatures from various games.
I definitely still have my fair share of miniatures. Like, don't worry. I still have plenty of miniatures. I like trying new stuff and I like goofing it up. Like I like that feel.
So what's the thing that you're trying to learn and you're trying to develop as a skill, like as a painter? I think it might
Uh,
be interesting for people to hear from somebody that has painted professionally and is very well versed in painting. Like, what are you personally working on?
that's a really good question. I've been the past couple of years has definitely been more about like letting go of precision for myself.
Uh-huh.
Um, when you're a studio painter, everything has to be like absolutely perfect because that thing's going to go on a box and somebody's going to be sitting there. And it's going to be the one thing they've been waiting for their entire lives. And they're going to be laying in bed on their phone and they're going to look at every single strap and every single buckle. And you want it to look right for them. Like you want it to look good for that person so they can be inspired. Um, Switching to not a studio painter and just painting for streams to educate and for ourselves uh, has made me like I just want to paint. I just want to be. I want to paint fast and loose and free, and just let things happen. So
Yeah.
like learning how to like add like little weird colors. Like I took a whole class. I paid for a 2-day class a while back. Several of us did. There's like lots of us. Um, it was a big class, and it was awesome, right? It was like a bunch of stuff I knew and a bunch of stuff I kind of understood. But the big thing I took out of it was the just have fun and be free and like let yourself mess up and let the brush strokes be seen. Let colors be in weird places.
Yeah. Where it's like it's a focus on the process, not the end result, right? Like you're just trying to learn new things and experiment and have fun with the art of painting, as opposed to focusing on producing something specific, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Right on.
so like learning how to put periwinkle or chartreuse or candy apple green inside a human face when you're painting it has been like that's been the stuff I've been focusing on.
Cool. That's definitely really, really a good goal. It sounds very freeing and very and just fun, like every day it's like you're just kind of focusing on, oh, what's this weird thing in front of me?
Yeah.
How am I going to try to solve this
Or
particular
like
problem?
or like stuff like this. Like there's a mold line And that's like, that's cool.
Yeah, just roll with it.
What about you? Have you been focusing on any new techniques? Like, I know Schick is working on like exploring oil paints and stuff.
Yeah.
What about you? I know you do.
Um, I like oil paints a lot. I think that they're something that I haven't mastered yet. I primarily use oil paints for kind of fast and effective wash techniques, but I
Yeah.
don't really utilize them for their blending capabilities. I think part of that is just a nervousness about putting my thumb in the middle of it and smearing something or whatever. But I should take a page out of your book and just think about, well, it's all about the process. It's like, why concern yourself about it and just experiment. I think I've also really wanted to focus on trying to get my paint jobs cleaner, I guess, like more kind of a little bit like in the times that I really want to, like really sharp and good finishes.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to like investigate different ways to, load up my palette, try to minimize any sort of debris that gets in there, cleaning my brushes in the right way, and just try to train myself in a way that I can hopefully produce cleaner paint jobs in the end.
Yeah, those are, man, I'm with you. I want to learn how to do more with oils. I've done several things. I've done a bust with oils, and the blending capabilities of oils is ridiculous.
Yeah, totally. I
Just,
use it on terrain from time to time, and it's just having those, you just
yeah,
putting down like some burnt umber, like in a little swatch, and then using a larger brush to kind of feather it out to make like these weathered spots. And it is really, really cool. But it's a different material. It doesn't play very well with acrylics very well. There's some special considerations, and I think that a lot of that just comes about through practice, and just trying it,
yeah. And sometimes,
experimenting,
sometimes just boffing it up.
just boffing it up. It's cool. It's all right if that happens.
Yeah. Oh man, the blending capabilities. I can't get over it. Just boy, oh boy. To the point where I was like, it's like, oh, I put this color down, and you walk away, you eat dinner, go for a walk, then you come back, you're like, oh yeah, and you just blend that color out, and you're like, yeah, that's cool.
Hurricane Girl is adding a lot of good insight in the chat right now, kind of helping out, talking about coverage of paints and different approaches and try to how to achieve brighter colors, things like that. I think that's it's a fundamental part when you're thinking about your paint job too. At the very beginning, is like, how do you prep it? Do you prime it white? Do you prime it a darker color?
Mm-hmm.
Do you prime it a color? I think there's a lot of decisions and a lot of experimentation that can be had there in a cool way. You typically like to do the zenithal approach, right? Is that mostly for streaming, or do you do that in for all your miniatures?
I use the Zenith a lot, mainly because it lets you see the miniature.
Oh, right.
Right, it lets me kind of see the volume, which is my favorite word for miniatures, is the volume.
Yeah.
I like being able to see the shapes of the miniature and kind of where stuff lies, and so the Zenith helps me see that sometimes. For stream, it helps on camera, obviously. It also lets you for like glaze painting, like the zenithal glaze painting techniques that are pretty popular right now.
Mm-hmm.
It lets you get those really fast and loose paint jobs knocked out because you're just going right over the value.
Yeah, and you're using the transparency to your benefit, right?
Yeah. So it's
Over top of a gradient that's already kind of laid down from the priming job.
Yeah, you just already have value. So value is light to dark in color. So if you create a value sketch in white and black, if you do a cheap one with zenithal, you get that kind of initial shade or initial start to that. Brendan and I have been playing with some other techniques that allow or that play along with this. We're like, instead of doing a zenithal in white and black, we're using color zenithals.
Ooh.
Right, so you're just like laying down like maybe a dark purple and a magenta and a light magenta instead of white and black, and then using glazes over that to create even more value and even more contrast.
Yeah, I love that. That sounds really cool. I love kind of complex colors that have like other colors in the shadows as opposed to just like a darker value of that same color.
Oh yeah,
Like a purple shaded with a blue or a green or something, or like yeah, I love how that looks. It's so much more visually interesting to me, and
that's
something that I like to work on quite a bit in my own stuff.
that is definitely something I love playing with. Like my little clone troopers. Um, wait, I haven't even shown my. I can show you my starter. Like even on this fella, there's like little bits of blue and yellow added to the armor later, um, to give it more life. And then like the black, I didn't really do much with the black, but it's definitely a blue black. But yeah, hiding those little colors here and there, that's what makes. I mean, because that's what's happening in real life. If you go
Mm.
outside and you're walking down the street and you see a white wall, try to isolate the colors. John, you've done this probably a million times.
Oh
You
yeah.
you can learn to isolate colors in your eye, and you'll see that a white car or a white wall, they're not white at all. They're yellow and red and green and blue and all these other colors. It's like beating back at you. Like yellow cars have green and blue in them. Sometimes like little hints of red. Uh,
Mm.
there's just all this color hidden in the world. And so if you can learn to tap into that on your miniature will look more alive. Boy, we're
Totally.
just like
I
yammering.
always think it's like super interesting when a color dramatically changes in relation to the other colors around it.
Yeah.
Like that is fascinating to me. That it's something that reads as gray or blue or do you remember that image that went around the internet a while back about the dress? Like
Was it gold or
blue?
yeah.
Yeah, just things like that, and just how people perceive color is like a super interesting thing to me.
And we all perceive the same color differently. Some of us have more cones than others.
Right, right.
You ever met a painter with two cones? Woo, boy, they're tough to teach.
I bet.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
even like there's one that's there was one that was recently going around. I saw it's like several different circles, and all the circles are the same color, but because of the way they intersect with other colors on a line, they all look different. It's like you can learn to do that on a miniature. Like there's painters out there doing really interesting stuff like that. So
That sounds cool. Definitely sounds like something to experiment with. Some future paint jobs. Maybe we'll get crazy with some clones in the future.
oh yeah, some really wacky clones. I'm in.
Yeah. That are like just wild lightsaber lighting effects and things, just like, no, not just a blue glow or a red glow or something like that, but yeah, combining different glow colors and having them kind of mixed together.
Yeah, put a little purple in that. Put a little purple in that red lightsaber glow.
Yeah, totally.
Or where the red lightsaber intersects, like on Darth Vader, if we put a little purple where the red lightsaber intersects with the black armor, it just looks more realistic.
Totally. Yeah, I liked your OSL class that you did for Mini Extravaganza. That was really cool. Darth Vader and some other characters. OSL is object source lighting for those people that don't know. It's like painting and lighting effect.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was just a cool class, and it was I think it was really insightful for a lot of people.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like that. I like that class. There was definitely more. I approached those lightsabers from a very artistic way, not a realistic way.
Mm-hmm.
Like which I taught in the class was just like if this was a professional, well, I'm not going to use that word. Uh, if if this was for competition, I'd be really thinking about how light actually works. But for just a cool miniature, it doesn't matter how light actually works. It's the rule of cool, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to see the cool lightsaber version sometimes, not the accurate.
Something that's got some drama to it and like some atmosphere, I guess.
Some of that je ne sais quoi.
Je ne sais quoi. I think that's my favorite thing to paint.
Je ne sais quoi?
No, this is somewhat related. My favorite thing to paint is dioramas because a huge part of that is, the setting, the integration of the miniatures with their surroundings. I love doing that. It's so fun, and it's always a delicate balance because a lot of times I'm trying to get more stuff painted for my armies and get more things for the tabletop. But I think I find myself more and more drawn to just painting things that are just like visually cool, and then that are that teach me and that I learn new things on.
Yeah, that stuff is fun.
Yeah, big time.
See, now I'm going to suggest something, and you guys are going to kill me. Like maybe we do a diorama for our little 500-point force to add to our already piled on.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe we don't shoot to try to get that done in May, but maybe that's a follow up that we do afterwards.
Chick is cursing me right now.
You guys have a lot on your plate as far as painting. You got another 10 miniatures on top of what I'm doing. It's busy times.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm having fun painting these clones. I'm super stoked to get these knocked out.
We have a force to play a brand new game with. You get to learn what you like about a new game, and that's an exciting thing for me is getting your first force painted for a new game and just getting it on the tabletop and getting a feel for it and deciding what you like about it, what you might want to change about your force, all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm so stoked. Pagani's was I went to the office earlier and Pagani was playing a game of Legion against Plumber, and Luke was like watching it, and I was just like, I get to play my first game soon, and I'm gonna be able to understand and be like, okay, well now I really want to add this unit to, or like, I could shave off these points here and just add in, this, to make it do stuff.
Yeah. Well, that kind of gameplay perspective, I think is great for trying to decide on, what new units to add to the game. I think we largely focus on, what's really cool and what we really want to do and what we're really enthused about. But we often make decisions about what we're adding to the games based on, what we think is going to be good for them. And I think the more experience that we have, actively sitting down and playing the games outside of just designing miniatures for it, it's beneficial for sure.
All I know is I need a dewback commander that lets me take dewbacks as troop choices.
Make it so.
Luke,
I support this decision.
Get on it.
Get on it. I'm sure we can talk Luke into that. I'm sure you've probably already tried.
Every meeting.
Nice.
I just remind them.
We'll break him down eventually.
Where is my dewback commander?
More sweet lizards.
Seeing the second shade's been pretty good. I'm pretty happy with like 2 shades in 2 hour or 1 hour.
Yeah, I think that's looking good. I'm kind of getting in a little bit too deep base coating this guy. I think I need to start moving around and just start doing some more generalized steps.
Oh man, when that happens, when you just kind of like lose yourself and you just like, you're just doing, you're just like, I know I don't need to be doing this step, but it is so fun.
Sometimes you just get locked into certain colors, Like I can't resist painting this other shade of green because I know it looks cool. So I'm going to do that next. And then I'm going to shift.
Grimwolf UK says Bantha Riders.
Yep.
That'd be cool.
Do like that. I think just like riders in general, right? Like,
yeah.
There's something really cool about cavalry.
ATST commander that lets me take nothing but ATSTs.
Oh God, that sounds brutal.
I'm in. Sold.
I do have a significant love for the ATST.
Yeah, I definitely I own an ATST. I actually painted one for Pagani a while back.
Cool.
But I do own an ATST, and I just haven't found a reason to paint it yet. And not like I need a reason, but that's kind of why I like miniatures, is they give me a reason to do art. But eventually I'll have a reason to paint up that ATST.
Nice. Yeah, mine is like mostly finished. I just need to sit down and do the oil washes on it and a little bit of detail work. Like all the hard stuff is done, but I've been jumping around so much with other things for my Imperial forces. Partially for work and then also just things that I'm kind of interested in working on. A lot of characters and stuff that come out. But I think that is going to be my next Imperial project, is to wrap up that ATST, because the test games that I've played with it are a blast. They're very fun. And plus, it's just so imposing and awesome looking on the tabletop. Like, why would you not want to have one of those?
I mean, that's the kind of player I am. It doesn't matter how good it is on the table for me. Like,
right.
Does it look cool? Yes. I'm in. I've definitely had to show up with an army and people were like, oh, those guys aren't very good. No, I don't care. It looks rad.
Yeah, totally.
I'm winning because my army looks rad. And I painted it, and it's fun to paint.
Well, that's the thing about it. Like, going back and looking back at games, you're not really going to remember who won or lost. You're going to remember the spectacle. You're going to remember the good time that you had. You're going to remember like how awesome it looked. You and your friends having a good time with it. I think that's the big takeaway for me.
Toads agreed, sir. Toads agreed.
I never remember who won the games, but I always like look back in my mind's eye and be like, oh yeah, that was super sweet. We played a giant Hoth battle not too long ago with some of my coworkers, and there were, I think that we played like close to 3,000 points a side. It was massive. It took all day, and we were kind of combining command phases and things to make it run a little bit smoother. But there were like 3 air speeders on the table and a bunch of ATSTs and multiple like objectives, and it was super cool. We just kind of like invented a bunch of stuff and didn't get too caught up about it, but just focused on whatever was cool in the game.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
It was muy fun, and I can't wait to get back to playing some more games like that. That's why I've kind of been focused on getting some terrain stuff done, like the bunker that I got done recently. That's going to be a big part of the next big game that we're going to play.
Simone says, if I love dewbacks, then I should check out the short story by Daniel Jose Older, From a Certain Point of View. It's phenomenal. Does that get the named dewback guy? You were supposed to tell me the name of that guy.
Oh, I don't know that one. I'll have to look that one up as well.
Called A Certain Point of View.
A Certain Point of View.
Yeah, it's got a named dewback trooper. If I remember correctly.
I like that. That's one thing that's so cool about Star Wars, is that it's there might just be a character that's on screen for like 5 seconds, but they have figured out the backstory and this person's name and where they come from and who they affiliate with. And there's just, I'm always amazed when we were doing research for new units and things and just checking out all these great resources that we have available to us, just how in depth they get with all this stuff.
Yeah, I discovered some names the other day of things I had no idea had names. I was just like, okay, well, I guess that thing has a name.
Yeah. Your favorite random character, I'm sure, has got.
Yeah, what high school their mom went to.
All that stuff. Favorite food, etc. All right. This guy's got enough attention. I got to move on. On to the next.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to like let it go, right?
Yeah. It's all about building these things up. Broad strokes. I can always go back and do the detail-y stuff. Well, let's get some green on these other fellows.
Yeah, I totally overshadowed the last guy. Like, I just put too much of the dark shadow color in there, and I'm like, yeah, well.
Well, when you make your sweet diorama, that guy's going to be back in the alleyway somewhere. He's going to be hiding in the trenches.
I need to come up with some like clone code names for my clones here.
That's half the fun.
Plumber got Jeff Drexler.
I remember that whole conversation. That went pretty far.
My clone commander needs a name. I can't have the Lucky 13s led by no name commander. It's not gonna fly. So I'm probably gonna end up coming up with names for every clone.
That sounds sweet. I started to name a few of my droids. Actually, Stream started to name some of the droids that I have.
I was watching that one.
T4CO, the tactical droid.
Yeah.
Because he's got some taco colors, and OLIV3, I think, is the probe droid. I should just have them name them all. They're kind of come up with better names than I will. All right.
There is it. Simone, is that the name of the guy? TD7556 Sardis Ramson.
Sardis Ramson. All right. TD7556. Report to your post.
That's the Dewback writer's name from that short story.
Nice. I will have to read up on that. That sounds cool. Simone's got all the knowledge. She is steeped.
Oh, Simone says it's all about the trooper that Obi-Wan did his Jedi mind trick on.
Right. Yeah.
It's told from the perspective of him filling out the report.
That's awesome.
Atomic Mass Games, I don't know who's behind the control board today, says, how can my commander's name not be Lucky?
That's true. It could be Lucky's 13s. How many total miniatures do you have in your force?
Oh, that's the best part, John.
Are there 13?
There's not.
Oh.
Not 13. It's so what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 13 plus the tank. Like, so technically there's a pilot and a gunner in the tank, but it's 13 plus the tank.
Right.
And then I did paint a Rex, like my custom Rex as my
Yeah, he's sweet.
And I kind of want all their TK numbers to have 1, 3 in them somewhere.
That's a good idea.
Not TK, CT. So they all have CT and then 1, 3. Somewhere in their numbers 1, 3.
Totally, that's a good idea. You could maybe name them after like playing cards too. You could have like ace and spades and club and jack and I don't know, things like that.
Joker.
Traditional playing cards. That's a little bit out of universe. They'd be using Sabak, right?
They'd be using Sabak. I looked at Sabak. I came up with my little symbol for the Lucky 13s. It's based off the Sabak 3 diamonds and then just a number 1, which exists in world. So
cool. Yeah, I dig it. Those little story elements are just going to keep you so enthused during the project, right? And it will just help inform some of your decisions as you go. I think that's a great way to approach it.
I can't stop painting now. Joker hasn't been painted.
All right. Well, we are winding down, Dallas. Is there anything in particular you wanted to talk about?
Boo!
We only got about 5 more minutes. I could paint all day.
I know. I'm not done painting. I could keep doing this. Remember that what's the hashtag we're
Oh yeah, great point. So, alongside everything that we're doing here, we've asked folks to we have a regular My Star Wars Legion hashtag that we have, in which the current theme for that is core units. But in addition to that, if you are embarking on painting a new force over the month of May, much like we are, and you want to post your progress, use the Gathering Forces hashtag. You see it down there at the bottom of the screen. with your posts, and we will check social media and we'll pick out some cool ones, and then we'll talk about them on stream. Give you a little bit of recognition, keep you motivated, and yeah, we'd appreciate it if you all joined us. That'd be really cool. Paint new armies in May. That's kind of the theme. New forces.
Also gives me motivation. I love seeing people painting their new forces, their new miniatures, and when they're basically challenging me, it makes it even better because I love being challenged.
Nice.
It's what motivates me, honestly. It's not praise by any stretch.
It's the kind of camaraderie of like, oh, we're both embarking on this challenge.
Yeah, and that
is super fun. That's a number of my friends and I we often do that. Like we have painting challenges, like, oh, we have to get this thing done in a month, and it's not really about who wins. It's just about working together on something and posting progress and ribbing each other from time to time.
Oh yeah, I like being told I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it better than you, and I'm going to be like,
oh, really?
Let's do it then.
We'll see.
I'm here to party.
Well, I definitely like your diorama idea. I'd have to decide what I'd want to do for that. I think it's just like a beach siege, right? Like for Kashiki kind of forces.
Yeah.
For the separatists, that seems like it's where it's at.
The beach scene.
Oh, I love that. From Revenge of the Sith. So cool.
I'm telling you, though, Plumber and Schick are like cursing me right now.
No, they don't have to do it.
You're the worst.
But we'll look down on them if they don't. That's the key.
Oh, we'll scoff.
We will scoff. Openly scoff.
Then get a harump out of that guy. I gotta remember to keep the second shade like real loose. I keep overdoing this second shade. That's not what this is about.
There you go. There's a great suggestion for you. Top Gun volleyball.
Oh yeah.
You just need to swap out and just make all your clones shirtless, or not. Maybe they just play in their armor. Who knows?
Just the armor pants.
You always have to be on guard.
Yeah, you never know when trouble is afoot. Sitting there, be relaxing as a clone, playing some volleyball with the boys.
And all of a sudden, a crate dragon pops up and attacks.
Boom.
Boom. What are you going to do now? Yep, shore troopers, definitely good theme for that. Do you think the shore troopers have more fun than the other troopers? I mean, they live on a beach planet.
It's true. They all know how to surf.
I would think so. That would make sense to me. I think I'd like to be stationed on Scarif. That would be pretty sweet.
Rowdy Octopus, I do have a saber tank in my skirmish force. That's the way I roll.
Yeah, that thing is going to create problems.
I don't even know what it does in the game yet. Don't matter.
It shoots pretty well. It is a straight shooter.
Don't need to know what it does. I know it's a tank.
That's good enough, right?
That's good enough for Dallas.
Nice. Sounds like El Spire Spray's getting some dewbacks. What a great gift for the Mother's Day. Fabulous.
That's a Mother's Day ago? That's awesome.
Evidently, yeah, that's what I'm reading. Man.
That's amazing.
Kids are tuned in. They know what's good. Oh, could we bring up the list one more time before we part for those people that might have missed it? Person that is working the board, perchance. I thank you. Yep, there it is. So, yep, I'm all in on General Grievous and battle droids. Dallas is mostly all in on that tank. And seems like suppression mitigation. That's the big thing.
I was told it was useful.
Yeah. Oh, I think it is. In my experience, yeah, the clones just, they do so much better when they have two actions per turn. If they're suppressed, they can kind of struggle a little bit.
And I didn't have points for anything else, so
Well, you can always expand 800 points once you kind of figure out what you think is going to supplement it well.
That's true.
I will certainly be adding a tank to my list. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We had a wonderful time. We're going to be back next Wednesday and next Friday, in which we'll have a different pairing of participants in the Gathering Forces. Don't forget to use the My Star Wars Legion and Gathering Forces hashtags when you are posting things to social media, so we can take a look at them and share them with the community as well. I think that's largely it. Anything left to say, Dallas?
No. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for painting along, and get ready for more action.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week.